La Bienal Iberoamericana ha llegado a su 7ª edición. La BID es un proyecto transversal y con ambición internacional y está ligada a Madrid como ciudad puente natural entre Latinoamérica y Portugal. En este año complicado de la pandemia, la vida se nos ha transformado. Ha sido un año difícil para todos y por eso agradecemos a los participantes de la Bienal, al jurado, al comité asesor, a los organizadores y a todas las personas que estén involucradas en esta Bienal de haberla hecho posible. Ahora voy a tener el placer de presentar a una diseñadora cuyo trabajo admiro mucho. Es Marina Willer. Ella es brasilera y vive en Londres. Hizo su maestría en el Royal College of Art, en diseño gráfico. Antes de unirse a Pentagram como socia, fue directora creativa de Wolf Ollins en Londres. Es una de las diseñadoras brasileñas con mayor proyección internacional. Fue la primera mujer en hacerse socia en Pentagram de Londres. Y eso ya tiene un mérito inmenso, ya se pueden imaginar. Durante el curso de su carrera, Marina ha dirigido el diseño de importantes esquemas de identidad visual, como la Tate, las más importantes siendo la Tate, las Serpentine Galleries, entre otras. Y para nosotros, los latinoamericanos, también nos identificamos a hoy, la empresa de telecomunicaciones de Brasil. Ella también hizo esa marca. Entonces, yo quería agregar, yo quiero agradecer al Festival de la Imagen, Utadeo, Universidad de Caldas, por brindarnos el apoyo necesario para esta producción. Y algo que quiero agregar, que es una opinión personal sobre el trabajo de Marina, es que en la Bienal, durante los años que hemos participado, desde el 2007 en estas bienales, hemos discutido sobre si existe un diseño iberoamericano o latinoamericano, y nunca hemos llegado a una conclusión definitiva. Pero sí hemos visto, y yo pienso, que hay elementos, sí, que hay cierto común denominador, o ciertos comunes denominadores que se pueden identificar en el diseño iberoamericano. En este caso, yo hablaría de Latinoamérica. En el caso de Marina, desde mi punto de vista, ella tiene un diseño muy descontraído, como se dice en Brasil, muy juguetón, con mucho movimiento, así sea una marca, estés viendo la marca fija sin estar sin ponerla en sus aplicaciones, siempre hay algo que siempre se mueve y es muy colorida también, tiene un uso del color muy, muy, muy diferenciado. Y yo creo que ella se podría poner como ejemplo, como que sí, sus raíces brasileñas sí dejan huella en su diseño, que es totalmente cosmopolita e internacional. Entonces, ahora estamos con Marina, que nos va a hablar del diseño en cuarentena, o Design in Lockdown, como ella lo ha puesto. Ella va a hablar en inglés y esperamos que todos se entiendan.
Hola Marita, muchas gracias por la introducción, muy amable. Sí, voy a hablar en inglés. Quería solamente decir muchas gracias por The BID, por invitarme. Y I'm going to share my screen now. So, I hope all works. So, can you see everyone, I hope? So Marita, you can see me and hear you can see the screen. Yes. So thank you very much. So yes, I will talk a little bit about what it's been like to be a designer in times of lockdown. I think we all have had, you know, it's a very difficult time. It's been a very difficult year. We've all been close to, you know, a lot of sadness in terms of the pandemic and what it means for so many people who are less lucky than we are. It's also been a very heavy year with a lot of violence and racism and things that we've seen grow in America. At least we have the good news from my perspective that Trump has lost the election, and hope that this starts to send good signs, because we all come, for example, for me coming from Brazil, it's very hard to watch what's happening with Bolsonaro leading the country, how many lives has been lost because of COVID, because of violence, because of what's happening with Amazonia and Pantanal and all the fires, and it's very, very sad. So in light of all of that, I think it's been quite hard for many of us to keep our minds in a good place and to keep working as well, to have work and to keep the motivation. So I start by talking about what it's been like for me. And I think I've always spent time doing things which aren't so much design related, but still things that bring me joy and keep my mind in a good place. So I won't talk about some of the projects that were mentioned, but you know, I've always had a lot of experience doing things for charities, Amnesty, Oxfam, and for arts and culture, as Marita described, like brands like Tate, or brands for Richard Rogers, or Melissa, which is an important Brazilian fashion brand. So really exciting projects, and also exhibition designs, like we designed several exhibitions for the Design Museum, like the Kubrick exhibition, and we then bring together the space design as well as films, brand, identity, graphics, and all the elements coming together. So you see a little bit of an overview here, but I will talk a bit about what it's been like to keep you know, inspiration and keep focus in times like I was describing of lockdown and when things are so challenging, because I think there is a higher level of anxiety for all of us. And at the same time, at least for me, the work has multiplied because there's more work having to work in the ways that we work. So in free time on the weekend or in the evenings, I try to do things which keep my mind in a good place. I've always suffered from migraines, so I use things like doing doodles and drawings because they are good to keep your mind focused, and it's almost like meditation. So that I have a desk that looks like this. We use the typewriter a lot for fun, which is, you know, anything to compensate for all the hours that we spend on the screen, on Zoom. And the more we become technological, the more we also, I feel the instinct and the almost the need to do things by hand, because that's it's good to keep us sane. So I've always had the habit of writing and doodling and quite crazy in a way. These are sometimes when I'm in meetings, I'm making notes like that. And it's a way to keep focused. And also because there's so much to deal with and to process in your head, it's a good way to relax. And so sometimes I make them more visual and more, this is like me trying to organize my life, which is hardly organized, it's more like chaos. But you can see here, I'm trying to organize what I should do about work, about admin, about health, you know, my plans for films and things like that. And and of course family. So these things become fun for me almost. And also sometimes I write about all the things I dream of doing when we're just locked in and inside the house because we can't go anywhere, and the world that we would love to see. Like it talks about no racism and no, some of those things, or the places I'd like to go, and just organizing or disorganizing my brain and putting those brain maps on. It's something I really enjoy. And like Marita said, I love color. I cannot understand how some people design almost without color. Here in the UK, a lot of my partners always wear black, and a lot of the designs tend to be black and white because color seems to come after. But for us, and I think that's a common thread amongst Latin American and Latin cultures in general, that I think the presence of color is so big, and the light, that is impossible to neglect that. So back to this idea of creating patterns and things that are drawing as a form of meditation, and doodling, and sometimes doing it almost with your eyes closed. And then I use a lot of these stickers I love. And I started to do that also on books. So this is a sketchbook that is actually a book. And it's almost, there's some relationship between the logic of the words and the story with a story that is much more fluid and intuitive. That is the doodle. This is a all-in-one book, which, and sometimes it goes a bit more like Morse code with stickers and colors and lines. Sometimes it's much more intuitive, almost you can do it with your eyes closed, or like music notations. I also use a lot of the cardboard that is left around the house from all these deliveries that we have now, and stickers, and create grids. And I really enjoyed I love the grids and the colors coming through, and how these things are not, they are useless. They have no purpose, but in a way they will come to inspire your work in ways that you don't imagine. So these are, again, boxes. I love how type and elements come together. These are lists of things that I have to do, or the day routine, and the terrifying list of things to do. These are doodles which are on the wall, or bits of cardboards, again, stationery that is left over. So it's recycling things, but color is always there and very important. And one of the things I've been loving doing recently, is difficult to show, but I've been collecting, when I go for a run, I collect, or when we were walking around, dry, dead bits of wood and branches, and I start to color them. And this takes a lot of time to do them with some kind of quality, precision, if I can say that. But these colors are super fluorescent, so it's almost the opposite of natural. But then in a way, there's some kind of almost like Frida Kahlo type of color that I love bringing to these things, which otherwise can be almost ignored. And also have always taken my little sketchbook to draw things wherever we go, and collected pebbles and drawn on them. And more recently, I started to do the pebbles with a lot of color as well. So this is almost obsessive. Like I come home, because sometimes I do go to Pentagram still, because the studio is empty now. So we can go and we do a bit in rotation. So there's very few people there. I come home and I'm desperate to paint the pebbles. But I noticed that when they gained color, they became a lot more exciting to me. And there's something geometric and almost modernist about it, which is a contrast with the much more organic and natural shape that things have. So this has been, I'm collecting all these things and driving my family crazy, because they are everywhere in the house. And we can see how the house is changing with the lockdown, because it's been such a long time now that we have much more of these things made by hand, and surfaces become work tables. And I do this with my children a lot as well. We when it was a bit warmer in lockdown, we were always doing a task to build something outside, and from the inside of the boxes we create things. They do papier-mâché, and we were building cities a bit like inspired by the Richard Rogers constructions, just using all the things we found in the kitchen, and then we dismantled them, and they just there for a day, and then they've collapsed anyway. And so we keep doing it by theme. Sometimes it's using kitchenware, sometimes pans and things. Sometimes it's things from the like this, which are much more from the studio. So I think if these things are really just for joy and they have no purpose, but if you are present and when you're doing these things and you really put yourself in it, it's incredibly satisfying and almost healing. I was working on a film which we had to stop, but we were working on a film with a girl who is now a teenager, but as a child she had been struggling with mental health, and she started, her family decided to teach her how to bake bread. And with that, she really recovered, because she had, the bread making was almost like a way, again, or like a mantra, or a way of, as they say, staying present and being mindful is a way of a type of mindfulness. So I think that made me think a lot about all the wonderful things we can do with our mind, and especially when there's all this negativity outside with COVID and the things I described, that you can stay positive and you can find energy even if you don't go to beautiful places that inspire you. So I think if you stay present and collect these things, they will come into your work somehow. I was listening to, there's a guy who teaches, a wonderful teacher, the music teacher, teaches my children play guitar. And instead of teaching songs, he always says that he teaches the vocabulary. So it's the ingredients, so that they then create their own songs. So they compose their own songs. So they're not memorizing songs from other people, which is just a repetition. And I think in a way, these exercises also help us create like an archive of colors, shapes, things, connections, movements, and they will find their space in your stories as you develop work as a designer. So the more you do these things, the more you have like an archive of ideas. So I'll show you now work that we've been doing reasonably recently. This is the very last project. It's coming out now. It's a strange thing. It's UNESCO contacted us, and I love UNESCO for what they do. I have great respect. And they have a summit, like a conference that will happen, I think it's next week. And you can go online for free. It's incredible. It's lots of thought leaders from all over the world, including government people and prime ministers of places like Finland and, you know, the progressive ones. And they're talking about the future. They're trying to foresee aspects of life in the future so that we don't have this catastrophe like we've had with the pandemic, where we didn't expect anything, and we need to get more prepared for things. So it's a very interesting conference, and the idea of preparing and creating debate for things which are unfamiliar and unknown was our brief in a way. So we had to create not just the logo, but the whole space, virtual space, because the conference can't be done in person like this one. It has to be done all online. So we created this platform for the conference. So this is what it looks like. I hope it's moving on your screens. Sí. Marita, please tell me if anything doesn't work or this doesn't have sound. So this is the summit, and it's a really interesting thing. If anyone is interested in those discussions, I know it's free and you can register, and then you get into the actual. This is like the space already, and then you have a program, and daily, every day is a different color. So you know you've gone to a different color. But these elements, they are, you know, colliding and they're merging. And it's like discussions, it's like they represent different societies, different ways of seeing things. And oh, something happened. I got out of my screen now. Hello?
Sí, ya te ayuda.
Yes. Someone.
You can open again your presentation. Can you open it?
Okay, I'll go back. Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Sí.
Fine. Okay. It's not moving, but it's moving now. So
It's moving.
based on that, we then create the entire language for the campaign, for social media. It's been quite complicated to program this. It's made in a hybrid of Cinema 4D and After Effects. And then we have to also, you know, find forms that it's quite easy to code and to work everywhere. And these are posters. These, again, are daily media posts that they're starting to put out. This is the actual space. So you go into what they call an agora, and we program so that you visit this three-dimensional space, and each window is content from a different speaker, or it could be Google as a company, it could be a prime minister, it could be, you know, there are different types of content, and you can just experience that and go into each of these spaces. So it's a really interesting content and platform. And as they can't meet physically, they wanted to make a reference to the actual space. So you can see, because the UNESCO has a really iconic architecture, very utopian. Its headquarters are in Paris, where it would normally happen. So in this case, we tried to do this in a very simple way to build and all of that because of budget and time. But you have, I just showed you a few examples, and if people are interested, they can look for it and they can register for free. Then another wonderful project we've been so lucky to work on is launching in the next few weeks or days even, is the Moholy Nagy Foundation. I hope that you remember Moholy Nagy from your studies. He was this incredible Bauhaus artist and architect and painter and designer and inventor, and he created incredible installations, and he was quite famous for creating things with light and photography. He was a real pioneer. He was one of the most pioneering masterminds in the Bauhaus, and he had to leave, like many, for his Jewish background, and he left to be one of the founders of School of Chicago. So using the inspiration of what he did, which was so magical with light, as one of the things that was quite iconic, we created, a bit like we did when we were doing Tate, we created the logo, which we photographed by projecting through bottles of water. So this is not done in coding, it's done in the old style, because I wanted to use the same technique that he would have used at the time. So we did all kinds of experiments with light, and we projected through bottles of water so that you get this distorting effect. And we moved and we filmed. I'm not showing the film because it's a bit too big, but this is how we got it done. And then we have another typeface that is very straightforward as the descriptor. You've got the very expressive part of the identity, and you have the more descriptive, functional. And it's all with basically in black and white, but it can be positive or negative. And it's really almost liquid and very inspired by his work. So we have also designed the entire website, which is coming out soon, in the next couple of weeks, I think. So we're very excited about this. It was a real honor to work with them. It was a little bit by coincidence. I was doing a talk in Michigan, and somehow, you know, and working also with someone who happened to be of the family, like a grandson, and he really liked our work and therefore contacted us to do this, and they went to see my talk, and it's been a really wonderful connection, because I'm dealing with his daughter, who is still alive, and his grandsons and other members of the family, but they are all very sophisticated in terms of understanding of arts and the importance of, and very, very progressive. So it's been a real opportunity for me, and quite wonderful. So the identity then it works in many other applications, but this is a foundation that has all his archive. They look after it. So they give information for people who need it, but also the website has the entire archive. So people studying Moholy or creating exhibitions can visit and then form their own catalogs and compilations. So as such, we do lots of applications, but it's quite a modest job in terms of scale and budget. And then I'm going to show, this is maybe a bit more, it was before lockdown. This was maybe a year and a half or two ago. We did a campaign to promote women's voice, and that the client was the BBC. It's a campaign and identity for a series of programs about where women are the protagonists. So we had to do the videos, the opening sequence, and all the campaign and everything. So I'll just play the main film for you, and tell me if it's not working, please. So that was a very interesting, because it's more moving image based, but then from that we generated, and in a way, many of the projects I'm showing start like that, like the Moholy started in us filming and projecting in same methodologies that we used for Tate like 20 years ago. So there are ways of working that I like, which are to do with being more experimental, and that's why the connection with making things and not just making everything on the computer or in InDesign or Illustrator. I prefer to try and find ways that make things look and feel unique to the project and the relevance of that project. So from this, then we took lots of different compositions and screens and social media and all of that you can imagine. Now, this is a project, again, for about a year and a half ago, maybe. It's an opera ballet in Flanders. So Flanders in Flemish starts with the letter V, which is Vlaanderen. So there was a lot of complexity because they merged the opera and the ballet. And a lot of the first initial phase of this project was to figure out a logic that would work for everyone. How do you merge things? The opera, the opera had a lot of prominence. The ballet was smaller, and it was royal ballet. Some of the people were royalists, some of the people were not, and there were many issues. So the first thing we suggested was not to have the long name as the first logo contact, but to have the abbreviation so that we could do something more expressive and that people would remember outside of Flanders, but would recognize even if you don't speak the language, because it's quite complicated to remember. So this introduces the main elements. So the name is very straightforward and easy to understand. The three letters are more expressive, and they express this idea of fluidity and that nothing is static. Everything is changing all the time with regards to what they do. Not only the world is different every time there is a performance, the audience is different, the people, the instruments, everything changes. You can't repeat exactly a performance like you can repeat a film on Netflix. a performance has its own and unique moments, and that's so special. So that's why we create this fluid and adaptable language, which forms like a stage, and the content can sit inside that space. So you can see here how it works in a very straightforward way. And when it's a performance of ballet, the B is bigger. It's as simple as that. When it's a performance of opera, the O is bigger. And it's a very simple, space-making kind of mechanism with very straightforward typography. So like this, we then developed the entire language, as you know, print, digital, merchandise and everything. And it's been wonderful to work with. We had several workshops with them in the beginning to try and get to the basis of the work, or something that they all agreed with, that express their philosophy as well as their geography and the state of the world around it. So that's how you get to the identity as a system. Now a tiny project is, we are working with an artist who is called Stick, and he is someone in London that is quite big, but he does murals which all the funding, the money he gets is always, he turns into giving to the community. So a lot of it has been given to the nurses and the charities that supported COVID, or sometimes to diversity and all the issues that we've been seeing. So he is an incredible artist for his kindness. And he, for some reason, decided that he needed a bit of an identity because a lot of people were stealing his work, and he wants to have certificates of authenticity. It's a bit like Banksy, if you are familiar. So his name is Stick, and the name of this character that is his main piece of work is Stick. So we just gave it a typographic style that opens and adapts to incorporate his art. When in the case of being used in website and platforms like that, or merchandise. Of course, when he has a mural, we don't use the branding because that's his work of art. But this is a way to kind of package it for when you need to have a contract, to have a book, to have a website. And this is work that we are doing right now. And it's still in progress, and it's kind of tiny. So it shows that you will see that we have very small projects that we do because we care about the subject or the people. And then we have quite big projects, which I'll show you in a second. So this is the language, and you can see they can do partnerships. Big issue is the charity that helps homeless. He does a lot of work with them. And this is how it would appear as a signature on one of his paintings. Manuvo is a tiny project as well. It's working with an NGO that helps education for less privileged people in communities. So they create kits where teachers in school can learn to use technology for those who are not fluid in technology or don't have so much access. So they can create programs out of that, and they get training. So Manuvo is a bit like it is in Spanish. Actually, the founder is from Mexico. It's a startup kind of NGO, and it is about putting things together, connecting, and creating kits of parts, which are highly functional, but really for a good practical, but for a good cause. So it is all about social change. So again, we do all of this, and these are projects that we do really quickly because the budget is almost symbolic, but we want to be able to work for these things because we care about them. And then we also do a lot of screen imagery so that they can do the social media posts, and they can create kits with these components and the website. So we are in the process of building their website now. And you can see this is completely coming from the world of infographics and how to teach things and kits of parts, which are very practical, but making that desirable and interesting and so on. This is, and I'll keep going quickly, but it's another project that is quite recent. It's a lady who's a designer that works with artists from all over the world, and she creates, I always try to understand what is the role of what the branding has to express, what the role of the artist or organization or business is. So in this case, she creates structures where she uses works from other artists, and she promotes the work from them, but she might create a piece of furniture and populate it with textures and colors and materials from an artist, and so on. So I almost thought of the idea of a scaffolding, which is the structure that we use to build buildings. So her name is Sushiro. So we designed this in my team. One of our designers then created really a font. So each of these are parts of their collection, which come using the font. And then we design, some of the publications, the website, and it's been really wonderful. Now I thought I'll show you something that is very commercial, let's say, which is we have just launched maybe a month ago the new brand for Rolls-Royce. So it shows that we do a real diverse kind of breadth of clients. Rolls-Royce, the cars, it's the first time they are rebranding since they started. So a real honor for us, because it's such an aspirational brand. So I'll play a quick video that shows the work that we did. Some things we obviously couldn't change because it would be crazy to change. For example, the badge that you see on the car and the monogram, because that is one of these things that you can't change because it looks fake if you change. Other things like the figurine, the lady in front of the car, which is called the Spirit of Ecstasy, we have redrawn, and we have also redrawn the type, and we created also a pattern that we've done digitally with processor. It's a generator that uses coding to create the pattern every time. So it shows you all of it in a very brief video here.
Mm-hmm.
So what you see at the end, the pink lines, that is the pattern I was talking about. And that is done in a way that we created with a coder, a developer, or a processor, which is a generator. So every time a designer or someone in an agency needs to use that pattern, they put this the size, the scale, and the colors that they need, and it will generate it for you. So it comes in the right frequency, it gives you the right weight, and all of that. Otherwise, there's too much risk that human error would make the pattern not accurate or perfect. So this has been very interesting from a tech side for us to develop that, which is this pink pattern here. And also we used colors that are much more contemporary. They used to use a lot of black, which is very masculine. So we made the brand much more suitable for any audience, not just male. The pattern has a silk-like feeling, which is very much about driving forwards also with the movement, which is what they use in their strategy a lot. And then we've redrawn completely their, as you've seen on the film, the Rolls-Royce wordmark. We went back to the history of when it was much more based on an avant-garde kind of typography. And we redrew that to be relevant in our times. And there's details that you see in the animation of the angles in the legs of the R and all of that, which are very specific and detailed, and we took a lot of time and attention to those things. And then, of course, it's all those elements coming together. There are colors which are more subdued. We use this rose gold rather than a very flashy gold, so it's a bit more delicate and subtle. And just using the pink also makes a big difference to something that was seen as a bit old and too masculine. And you can see here the detail of the L's. The L's have these little the bars in angle. Makes a big difference to something that was seen as a bit old and too masculine. And you can see here the detail of the L's. The L's have these little the bars in angle. I just heard my voice there, so I hope it's all working. We're not far from the, I think that this is the last one, which is connected. Can you still hear me, Marita?
Sí.
Sí?
Sí.
Está bien. So Muse is the arts program of Rolls-Royce. And this has been incredible because this was the first project we won from Rolls-Royce because of our work in art galleries. We pitched and we won this, and then they loved it so much they ended up hiring us to do the other one. So we started with this one, and this was created with the ambition to launch at the Serpentine Gallery. So we designed the whole launch, which was a really magical night, very surreal for me because there were many Rolls Royces parked outside, which is very not part of my normal experience. But it was really lovely how we had the task to design all of the space and inside, outside, and all of that. So Serpentine is also our client, as you know. And then I'll show you, this is the last one now, a very brief film that we created to launch the idea of Muse. And Muse is because of the spirit of ecstasy, the statuette that I said we've redrawn, that as you saw on the designs, but Muse itself is the program, so it has its special logo, but it's connected to the rest. So you see it's all about projection, about light projection again, because it's about projecting the Muse and not being literally the car company, but it's a projection of its values and its spirit. you can see here that we also, and we always make and direct the films. We don't just brief, although the other film, Rolls-Royce, we collaborated with Nomad, the agency, but on this one, we literally directed and worked with the camera person and edited and did everything. And we really were using, again, this idea of projections through glass, different types of crystal and glass and textures of glass to create those reflections, and even the reflection of the statuette itself, the Spirit of Ecstasy, to then generate the mark that you see at the end, which is the same method of creating a pattern as the Rolls-Royce identity ended up using. So here's the brochure that we made, really special. It's the last time we did anything really tangible, because everything now is digital, but this was not so long ago before the lockdown. And it was a real pleasure, because they've got very beautiful works of art, and we had all the detail of printing and the quality there. This is Isaac Julian's, one of his films. And then we do things like, special boxes with gifts. So this is really to try and help, I guess, Rolls-Royce wants to invest in art to connect, to bring different associations to their brand. So yeah, we produced a series of things, and this is our last story. I think I just want to say thank you so much. If you want to follow us on Instagram, I'm a bit more active. You can see a lot of crazy doodles and some of the projects as well. And I don't know if you were hoping to do any questions, Marita, but gracias, thank you so much.
Yo no tengo preguntas del público, pero yo quería preguntarte si el proyecto de Manuvo lo hiciste durante el lockdown, porque tiene una referencia directa a tu doodling.
Ah, qué interesante. Sí, fue hecho muy recientemente. Hicimos en los últimos 2 meses. My Spanish is not so good, so I can speak English, but yeah, we did it all on Zoom. We never got to meet them in person, which is what's happening with most projects now. UNESCO is the same. UNESCO is all done during lockdown. And it is interesting because, you have this very direct connection with the team, even though it's not as special as meeting in person. There is also something more intimate and uninterrupted about, unless technology breaks, about these conversations, which are more intense. And, so it's interesting that you picked on that.
Perdón, Marina. Dice que si puedes dejar de compartir la pantalla para verte grande.
Of course, yes. 1 second. I'm trying to... I can't get my mouse to...
Disculpa la interrupción, Creo
no hay problema, mas no, I'm not able to...
Estamos, ahí estás completa. Yeah.
Okay, now, yes.
No, estabas hablando del proyecto de la UNESCO.
No. Sí, that was also done in lockdown. So I think in a way, also lockdown and this period is making so many changes in businesses and organizations, and people are changing, and people are having to do things in a completely different way. So there are many businesses having to reinvent what they do. We've been working with clients there's a client in Brazil called New Bank, for those who are from Brazil. We've been doing their brand, and they are one of those who actually benefit from the new behaviors that come in this world, which is really digital. People don't want to use money anymore, don't want to touch things. So there are many changes happening that helps them. But sadly, they also really have meant that a lot of businesses have collapsed, and small businesses and hospitality and restaurants and bars. And we see, of course, the most tragic is the health and the lives that have been lost. But there is also a real struggle for people to keep their work. So I think we've suddenly got so accustomed to working like this. I'm sure that's the same for everyone here. And even we've been judging for the Biennale, and everything was done online, which it's very consuming in terms of energy and everything that we do. That's why we need to find ways to do other things.
Y ahora la última pregunta, porque realmente el proyecto de Manudo se entiende que ha sido un proyecto pequeño a comparación de otros que haces, pero me sorprende que Rolls Royce haya cambiado su marca y le haya entregado a una mujer su cuenta. Porque realmente Rolls Royce es de hombres y ya es parte del establishment, es como decir the underground. I mean, ¿quién quiere cambiar el underground? El underground va a existir así siempre, ¿no? Entonces el Rolls Royce, cambiar el Rolls Royce. ¿Cuánto tiempo ha demorado ese proyecto? Desde la propuesta, desde la negociación de hacer el trabajo y realizarlo hasta el final. ¿Cuánto tiempo ha durado, Marina?
So that was over a year.
Nada,
we presented what you see here. We already presented on the pitch, and that's what won the project, because they really like, especially that what we call the expression, the pattern with the lines. I think, and I was very surprised as well, because I said in the pitch, I'm not a car expert. I've never done a brand for a car. It's not an area of interest, but I do like doing beautiful things. I'm very honored. It's a mark of quality, and what they do is, and also it's interesting that someone who's a woman and from Brazil originally is very unusual. But I think they like the work, and also they have been more forward thinking that they need to change, and that's important to not just have a brand that is over masculine, because that's limiting their growth. And like everyone, you have to become much more flexible and diverse and accepting of different colors and genders and identities, or I think you become a thing of the past. So the world is changing also in good ways. There's a lot of stress and tough things, but there is also a very positive movement for change in general.
But I think it's a milestone for British design, that change.
It's very interesting, that it happened, and we are still working with them. We still do sub brands, and we do weekly advice on everything that the agencies, the advertising people do. We check and we redesign. So it's been and they are very nice people, very, it's a small company actually, because the cars are made by hand practically.
I know.
They're not made by robots. So it's a very fascinating experience to even visit the factory and the care and the craft that goes into everything. So it has been an honor for me in that sense.
Yeah, I know. I understand very much. Thank you very much, Marina.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And
gracias to everyone. I hope you stay safe and well. And thank you to Alfredo and all the organization, Gloria, everyone. Yes.
Y quiero también agradecer al Festival de la Imagen, a Utadeo, la Universidad de Caldas, por brindar su apoyo tan indispensable en estos tiempos de pandemia. Muchas gracias, Marina, y espero verte pronto, quizás cenando en un restaurante por acá por Lima.
En Lima la comida es la mejor comida del mundo.
Y las hemos compartido varias veces, además, ¿no?
Sí, es verdad. Muchas gracias. Que queda bien. Muchas gracias. Adiós.